Hello guys, and welcome back to another Satisfactory guide, and today we're talking about another 18 or so design tips that you need to know for update 5, because there are so many cool things we can do right now. So if you do find this guide helpful, make sure to drop a thumbs up, and if you want to see more and haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Anyway, let's get into it. And as we get started, I just want to mention that if you're one of those who are wondering how we get all the materials and different types of walls and stuff, all of that is done in the awesome shop, which you can generate coupons to spend there by syncing items. And we are going to be using a lot of these, so if you don't know how to get a load of coupons quickly and you're in the early game, make sure to check out my video on getting coupons fast. But rolling in with the first tip of the day, I wanted to talk about using depth in your build, specifically at this point, for your roofs to give it that added detail. Now this can be quite easily done simply by dropping a few foundations down using a 1 meter foundation. Let's go down 3. We can grab the down ramps and place them, depending on where you want, just against these, and doing so will create this slightly deeper look for your roofs, creating the depth which really adds to the detail and can really stand out. And all you need to do is follow this all the way along. You can also do the same with normal ramps, as you can see here, and I feel this really does just up the ante on your builds. And obviously you can do the same with walls, which is what we're doing here. You can see in this particular position, what we've done is actually grabbed our barriers and then placed them slightly in of the foundation and then used control to build over. And this creates a nice indent, which looks great, especially with the deeper walls. Another thing that I'm playing around with at the moment is the use of clipping when it comes to walls and how we can integrate them into our factories better. Such as here, you can see that we've got the switch and also the lighting switch inside the wall, tying it into the build better. And this can also be done with things like the doorways and ladders to add extra detail to your builds. And moving away from just clipping items into things to add detail, there's no reason why you can't add parts of your factory as detailed walls, like this for example, just to show off that doesn't actually have a purpose within the factory. And along with clipping items into walls, we can also change the placement of walls to accentuate a given build. For example, take this corridor. Now at the moment it's quite open, however we can change the placement of the walls to make them closer to here by using this barrier. We can then place the barrier down either side, grab a wall. From here, we're going to use control to build that into the barrier. And doing so, we can create a much narrower passage to give a given feeling. The next thing that I'd like to do with this is spend a bit of time with lights, for example. That will give us something like this. And you can even go the extra mile by placing down more barriers as you go and adding the walls facing into the area. You'll see this in a moment, but we're also going to paint these as well using the customizer, like so. And once done, it should look something like this. Also play with the shading. Notice how we're using dark greys, whites and blacks, not just two different colors. This can really add to the detail. One of my favorite additions with Update 5 are the signs. Now the signs can look cool and be used for labeling things, but there are also other ways in which you can use them. For example, I have used mine as walls. Here you can see that because of the placement, we have this wonderful diagonal white line going through, which I really like. But alternatively, what we can do, if I just remove these, is we can, if we take all of these out, we have another row behind. Also, a good tip to know when it comes to these is Providing you've already done one of a similar type, for example, the square signs, you can just copy and paste the design onto the next one. But here we've placed the sign slightly further back, which allows us to have them show up just on the upper corner. And this is the same with obviously different materials. I love this technique, and you'll see me using this a lot more. Now, there are two ways that we can go about building this. If you want them in front, all you need to do is place them along the front of a foundation. Here you'll see with the metal walls, or the normal walls I should say, we can place these and have them clip through. You just need to make sure that you place the signs first, because you won't be able to place them here. If, however, you want to place them behind, you cannot go directly behind. You have this gap. So what you need to do with these is grab another sign. You need to have these large billboards unlocked. And from here, what we're going to do is place this just behind. And from here, we can grab one of these signs and then place these into it. And as you can see, if we just remove this out the way, you'll notice how this is now ever so slightly behind. Like so. Another way to add more detail to your factory with relatively little effort is to add beams as decoration for your walls. For example, we can do something simple, just adding a thicker support on these beams. Or alternatively, we can go and add a lot more like so. These can be used to greatly modify the overall look of your factory. For example, if you're going for a modern building look, there's no reason why you can't go ham and try different styles. Like this, we've gone horizontally but also vertically, and I love the feel that it gives. Or if you're feeling particularly adventurous, you can try different shapes, such as the hexagons that we have here, or the crosses here. Play around with it, see what you can do. It's just a different way to add your own little touch to the factory to make it look totally different to other people's. Another thing that I haven't done much myself but looks great is using the beams to create a structure for the build. You don't necessarily need to close everything in with walls. Just having an open shelter can look really cool. Or alternatively, you can use them for holding things like lights or even power. As you can see here, running a bus line of power across a beam looks so much more better because it keeps all the poles out the way, so you can just run one thing over ahead. And in my opinion, is one of the best ways to run power at the moment. This time we're going back to signs, and what I wanted to mention was how we can actually use signs as a kind of fake light source to give us particular detail that we want in our factory. For example, here, by turning the luminosity up, we're just going to remove that, copy this. By turning the emission strength up, we can get this kind of glow feel, and by changing the background color, we can give ourselves this kind of fake light. I say fake light because if we have a wall in front of it, you'll see that there's no light being reflected. However, we can still use them to great effect. So what we're going to do here is just add a nice little floor lighting, a little bit of a trim just to run alongside our factory to see how it's going to look. The next thing that I want to do is grab a beam. Now, if we use the wide ones, you'll notice that it's on the outside, and we can color this in by clearing go to backgrounds and select nothing, and then also remove the text. From here, we're going to add emission strength, and then we're going to change this black to a color that we wish. Now I have my own preset. So we're going to go to aqua lighting and going to select that. And from here, we're going to copy this and we're going to run this along here. As you can see, this gives us a nice little trim along the floor, something that can really stand out in your builds. And you don't have to just use the white painted beam. It actually looks really good with these metal beams as well. As you can see here, it looks great, and we can actually go one more above this and improve it using a different material. So here we're going to have the coated floor, and you can see it kind of reflects this light effect. And so it can look really cool in your factories. Just a nice little addition. Also, talking about using signs for lighting, there's no reason why you can't place this elsewhere as well, maybe for above. If you want to put it on a slight angle, you can also use painted beams or any kind of beam. So for example, we can drag this across, and then from here we're going to hold Control and we're going to place it so that it's slightly facing downwards. From here we can actually place this, and as you can see, it is now facing down into the room. Following that, we could possibly place a coated floor above, should we wish, and from here we could use this to give us a kind of reflection as well. So it's all about playing about with the items that we're given. I'm not gonna lie, I might use this in one of my builds. I think it looks great. You can also use these pillars should you wish to add more snapping points. I'm actually gonna grab a smaller pillar. And so we can place these down, and then if we grab one of these, you notice how we can also use these to turn the signs. And as you can see, you can also play around with the different colors to give you a certain vibe to your factory. I'm loving this neon feel that we have going here, and also the slight changing in the colors. I'm tempted to do a full circle. And despite my obsession with using signs as lights, you can also use them for to-do lists and for other things such as signage. Now, we've already talked about how we can use different materials such as the coated floors to create various effects in our factories, such as the reflections. But it's good in general to use a mixture of materials, such as here we have the light concrete on the outside and then the dark asphalt on the inside. It really looks nice having that different contrast. Same with having the glass foundations matched with the asphalt and then the concrete on the outside. Having a contrast in materials can really go a long way and keep your build from looking stale. Another thing to bear in mind is it doesn't have to just be floor materials. You can use decals to create focal points for your builds. You can play around with different types of beams or framed foundations to give this industrial supported look. Walkways have also been a heaven send in this update. For example, if we place a walkway down here, I've already covered this in a few videos, but we can create curved tracks or foundations by using these, by pivoting them from the other side. This is all well and good, but even better yet, we can now use walkways, if we just place them along here, to snap items to, whether that's foundations or even walls. Did you know you can also use beams to angle your light? Take, for example, here, you can see how the light is just on the outside of these constructors. This can look really cool when you're turning the lights on when these constructors are on themselves. If, however, we remove some of these, you'll notice that the light gets wider. So we can actually use these beams, sorry, to limit the distance of light spread in our factory. We can also create uplighting so that we can add focus points to our builds. To create uplighting, it's relatively simple. All you need to do, if we just go over here, you can see on the inside, we have placed down one of these tilted walls, which are super important because they allow us to place a wall-mounted floodlight on top. And then from there, we can actually pull these back to their furthest point, and that will allow us to angle light upwards. Now from here, we can also cover this, and like we were doing before, use the beams to reduce the area that the light hits. You can see how we're making this much more focused. We can do the same on the other side. We'll do the same here. To just have narrow gaps to allow the light to come through. And this can make a huge difference to your builds. Failing that, another thing that you can do is poke just the tops of the normal smaller, where are they? Street lights through the side of ceilings or even your walls to give these tiny little spotlight feels. Looks fantastic in my opinion. Finally, my last tip of today is one that uses, once again, the metal beams. Now, one thing that has been added with Update 5 is the ability to place storage boxes on beams. And if you use these metal beams, you can see that we can actually place these on the beam and it looks a bit like a drawer. Better yet, we can place these and stack them, and then once done, should we wish, we can grab something like these painted beams and run them up on the inside. From here we can grab signs, and next to these we can put in the resources that we're going to have in them to create our own separate emergency backup personal storage. This system makes excellent backup storage, as you can see we've done here in our Patreon server, but all around it's a great little addition that you can do around your base for personal storage. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please do drop a thumbs up, and obviously if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. And as always, special thanks does go to our amazing supporters, most notably our Solar Eclipse patrons, The Calamity, Cerebral Tag, James Irwin, and Jerry 2, as well as our Lunar Eclipse patrons, Dixie Chris, Lord of July, and Ben, as well as our Blood Moon of the day, which today is Papa Snoozy. Anyway guys, until next time, as always, ciao for now.